Good morning, everybody. Friday morning, and I'm here with some rock stars, some real, true educational wisdom holders. Melissa Lobel, my good friend, is our Chief Customer Experience Officer at Instructure Canvas and is just one of my favorites at the company. Also, bordering on taking over Melissa as one of my favorites is Megan Myers. Sorry, Melissa, you have been replaced.
I'm okay with that.
Megan is the director of e-learning at Howard Community College. And we're going to spend the next 30, 45 minutes just pestering her in a loving way with questions about what she's doing, because you'll be pretty amazed as you learn what they've done with rubrics, outcomes, what they did during the pandemic, what they're still doing, how they're training teachers. So Howard is without question one of those institutions that we're putting up on a pedestal as they're doing incredible stuff. So congratulations, Megan. Congratulations to the whole team and everybody. Welcome. As always, we want to know who you are. Where are you from? We usually get people from all over the world on this thing. So tell us in the comments, who are you, where are you from? And with that, Melissa, I am handing it to you.
Well, thank you, Mark. And more importantly, thank you, Megan. So happy to have you here with us today and so excited to have you share some of the really great things and insights that you all have developed as Canvas customers over the years. So speaking of that, would love to maybe start with a little bit of background. How did you become a Canvas customer? When did this all happen? And sort of what's led up to a pretty big year of remote learning for you all?
Well, thanks for having me. And we are longtime Canvas customers. So we started in 2011. So when I pull up a course, I can see a long history of usage at our institution. So we have a lot of history of training and lots of different ways. I am like the 5th e-learning director since we have had Canvas at HCC. And it really has grown from the faculty. The faculty have really taken ownership over the tools in Canvas. And so that's been really beneficial. And a lot of our chairs and coordinators really are leaders and looking at how we want to push the adoption of Canvas usage across the college. So, over the past many, many years of Canvas usage, what we've seen is that we benefited, Howard Community College, we're a community college, and we benefited from having all courses use Canvas and use Canvas in some uniform ways so that all of our students can, for example, find their syllabi in Canvas, find their grades in Canvas, communicate with their faculty members in Canvas. And so way before the pandemic, that just helped us with student success.
That's awesome. And what a great way to develop the competency to be able to respond to something like the pandemic so quickly. And in fact, how has that history and the way you've worked with your faculty, the expectations of your students, how has that all led up to sort of how you responded to the pandemic? And have there been some surprises since this all started in March? And sort of how is even fall starting to look?
Yeah, well, I can say that none of us planned on the pandemic, right? We had all kinds of ideas for our Canvas usage, and but the pandemic really didn't come into it until maybe late February. We thought, oh, is this heading our way? But it did really prepare us, right? So having Canvas knowledge and Canvas capacity in every division, in every department, that did lay a really good groundwork. And also having really strong online faculty. So we have a strong history of online teaching throughout the college, and that's everywhere in the college. And so those were a lot of times our leaders. We in e-learning and our partners in faculty development, we did a lot of professional development, and we can talk about that. But we're still relatively small teams. We were able to partner with leaders across the college who've been teaching online for 5 years, 10 years, who know so much about best practices and research in online teaching. And they were able to really partner with their colleagues in their departments and their divisions and say, this is what this looks like in calculus or statistics, right? Or this is what it looks like in English. And that's really, really beneficial for allowing us to gear up so quickly in basically 2 weeks in March, where we said, okay, let's look at where we are. And we were able to use some of data from our friends in IT. They used the data dump, and we're able to kind of see, okay, this is where we think. We think we have about 20% of our faculty who really need some targeted training to help them transition these face-to-face courses that have a grade book and a syllabi, but they're going to need to turn into an online course. So let's look at that and really help them make this transition, and in 2 weeks make that transition for the entire institution.
It's crazy. It sounds like, though, you have a culture of collaboration, if I can read into that a little bit, among the divisions, and that sometimes can be unique for institutions, right? Where you're sort of in your silos and you're working there, and you see varying levels of competency within those silos. But it sounds like there's a culture of collaboration. Am I hearing that right? And did that help as you started to approach the faculty that maybe needed more work as they're going fully online versus the faculty that were just ready to go?
Yeah, so we must be 5 years ago now. It's been a little while. We developed a roadmap as a committee of staff and faculty across the college. And it really took us about a year to develop that roadmap. And it was a really collaborative process. And I think that was one thing that really started down this road of collaboration, that wherever we're going to go when it comes to e-learning and Canvas, we need to do that as a partnership. It's not going to be this decision made here and we're going to just tell you, because we need to know, what does this look like in your division? How is this going to work with your existing practices? How does it work if you're going to, onboard a whole bunch of new faculty every single semester? Those decisions can't necessarily be made in a silo. They have to be part of this collaboration and partnership. And so that meant that when we needed to, for example, roll out lots of new versions of Teach Online, we had faculty members who were leaders across the college, and they co-facilitated all those sessions with us. And they have been ever since. So we did sessions all throughout March, April, May, June. We did more in July and in August. And so, just my department can't do it. We just can't do that on our own. So that's been in collaboration with those faculty too.
That's great. And I think especially for those listening that are designers or leaders or directors or folks that are really supporting the remote learning at their institutions, that is a great sort of best practice or tip, is having that buy-in across the campus and allowing the faculty and the divisions and the academics to own part of this process as well, so that it doesn't feel like it's just being passed to them, or here's what you must do, right? It's no, oh, here's what I can do, and here's how I can engage in that, which is really powerful, and you all are doing that incredibly well. How do you train your faculty? What does that process look like? How has that evolved over time? We'd love to sort of dig into that with you a bit.
So we have two training courses that are now online, fully online. One always has been online. It's called Teach Online. And that is our certification course for faculty to teach online. And of course, that's the one that has really taken off since the pandemic. And so many faculty members who also took it, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, they've come back and said, I want to take it again, right? I want to see what are the new best practices? What are the new tools? And I want to be part of that experience. So we've had, lots of new people take it. We've also had people come back and take it a second time. And so that version of Teach Online, it really relies on some of the previous experience that faculty have had in their face-to-face classroom, and we're asking them then to apply that to the online experience. And I brought a screenshot, and Mark, if you want to share, we can see that here. And so, for example, when we're talking about active learning, we have some exercises where they're taking active learning strategies that they might have used in the classroom, and now they're going to use those same strategies and apply that in an online environment. So that would be an example of some of the kind of things that they're going to do in that course. And they're in that Teach Online course using our template, using all of the, both the strategies and the tools that we're going to be teaching them. So they are having an experience as a student, which many of our faculty, we haven't done that in a while, right? We haven't had that experience as a student, so that can be very powerful. And they're learning from faculty across the college. So we really get that interdisciplinary pollination, which is really, really powerful. A health science faculty member saying, this is how we do this in a lab course. Would that work, in biochem or something like that? So, so that's been really beneficial, kind of allowing the faculty basically to share those practices with each other, and then also modeling what we think is our best practices in Canvas.
That's great. How do you manage different sophistication levels with online learning with your faculty, right? Because I imagine you've got faculty that have used it since 2011 and have been, are all in, right? And pushing on. And then there are faculty, like you said, that you've identified that you need to transition into a deeper understanding of this because they're still only using maybe parts of an online experience. So how are you managing that?
Yeah, so here you can see that we, in our Canvas training, and this is just a little bit different from our online training because really we're talking about the Canvas tools, but we're putting that also together with pedagogy, right? Because even in regular days, if you were just teaching in a face-to-face environment, we would still want to talk about, why do you want to have your navigation look a certain way, right? How is that going to help your students be successful in a face-to-face environment in order to be able to, locate their resources? So we're combining the pedagogy and the instruction on, tool usage, and then we are using 4 big themes: organization, content, assessment, collaboration, and communication. And then we're leveling it into novice, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And so faculty can come in and they can take a look and say, yep, I have these skills, right, in the novice, but I'm going to go to the intermediate for organization and content. Right. And that's where I'm going to place myself. Or I really just need to go back and get one little bit, right, of that knowledge. Because sometimes, we're all so good at finding exactly what we need in that moment, but that means we have that Swiss cheese knowledge of lots of knowledge around the edges, but we might have missed that one little pocket because we didn't need it in that moment, so we don't know that it's there. So this is our attempt to try to kind of build that out and help faculty know maybe something they didn't know, right, and would help them be more powerful in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that it's also something that faculty can come back to. So I think about my own teaching, and I still teach 1 to 2 times a year. And when I do teach, and I teach in Canvas, I'm lucky that I get to do that. I do find myself, as I grow as an instructor and as I think differently about how I want to deliver my classes, I do realize I have Swiss cheese knowledge, right? There's a few holes there where it's like, oh, I need to think about how I want to accomplish that. And oftentimes I'm doing that from a pedagogical approach. So it's great to see this, that I can align that pedagogical approach to the level of where I'm at, and okay, I know where to come back to that, which I imagine helps because then those faculty are also, I want to say mentors, but they're helping some of the more novice folks that are trying to do things that they're experts in. It sort of creates this really nice community of practice, I would imagine.
Exactly, and that's really what we're trying to build at the institution is the community of practice and the collaboration for our faculty to feel like, this isn't our thing that we're bringing to you. This is our shared project. This is a tool that we are together using for, our core goal, which is building student success, right? And so, you're going to have specialty knowledge that we don't have. We're going to have specialty knowledge that you don't have. We have to, have a place that we can share that together.
Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. That's so exciting. And once again, a really great way to be thinking about this, especially if you're at an institution out there and you're listening to this, that, you may not be at the, at the same experience level or exposure level that this team is at, really. And it's a good way to approach that. Now, I know pedagogy is key, as we've talked about, and you just mentioned student success. And I know you and the team, you work really hard at the institution to have a focus on outcomes, and driving student success and understanding how to back into what the indicators are of that student success and doing that across the institution. Would you mind sharing a little bit about how you use outcomes, how you report against that, and how that drives student success for Howard?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that most institutions will know what I'm talking about when I say gen ed assessment and what a big, driver of time and energy that is for many institutions. And that sometimes that gen ed assessment can feel like this add-on that we're doing or not exactly connected to the core work of our courses, which it should absolutely be, right? That integral part of our core work and how to understand student success. And I think one thing that we struggled with historically is that, the gen ed assessment is this huge undertaking, right? And we were doing lots and lots of work in order to try to understand the rigor of the assessment and the validity and, get inter-rater reliability. And at the end of it, we put all this work into it. And it was just, it was frustrating, I guess, people weren't super satisfied at the end. And so what we talked about at the end of our last round of gen ed assessment is that we wanted to look at how could we make that assessment meaningful, because that's number one. We want to get to that core of student success. How could we make sure that it is efficient, right? Meaning that if student success is our goal, we need to make sure that that's what we're focusing on in the core of our teaching and not just, filling out lots of forms for assessment, right? And sustainable. So what does that look like? And really we came to Canvas outcomes as the answer. So we are building this big gen ed assessment machine, and we're in year 3 of this. So we have some of our outcomes fully built and some of our outcomes are currently being built. And so it's a big rollout, and when you do things collaboratively, that means a lot of times you take your time and you build the consensus and you roll it out, right? So we're moving along our nice, rollout plan.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is all of our gen ed outcomes are at the very top of the Canvas of the Canvas instance, which means that I have access to them. And then we're pulling that outcome data into every single course that's a gen ed course, a little bit at a time so that we can manage the training, right? So one goal at a time. And then each faculty member is able to look at that assignment, associate that with a rubric or a quiz, and in that moment say, how is that student doing with this goal, right? With critical thinking, with global competency, with quantitative reasoning. And that's an individual assessment on that one student's piece of work. But when that gets fed back up to us, what we're able to do is pull that into a dashboard. And that dashboard is combined then with data from our student information system. And that allows us to really compile all of the outcomes from across the college. And you can see that here. And so we're seeing some sample data, again, because we're building this dashboard as we're working on this project. But we can do things like we can look at the data from outcomes by online courses versus hybrid versus face-to-face. We can see how men are doing versus women in our STEM courses. We can look at how students of different ethnicities are doing. We can look at how our summer classes doing versus 16-week classes during the fall term. And by using those different filters, we can really decide, are there interventions that we want to pilot in order to really help with student success? So you can see some of these different layouts, the percentage of students who are meeting, exceeding, or not meeting a particular objective. And with each of these, there's all the filters that I was talking about. And that allows our goal teams to kind of go in there, look at that data. This is our data on race and ethnicity, look at our data and really figure out what is the appropriate action plan to take based on that data to really promote student success.
That's super exciting. And
it's your question.
Oh yeah, and it seems as though you're able to do this, I'm going to say somewhat real time, because part of this is you need the faculty assessing, and assessment doesn't happen every minute of every day in a way where you can extract data, right? There are moments of assessment often, but it seems like you're doing this a little more real time than I think a lot of us have done, especially gen ed assessment, where you get a report at the end of the year, and then you've got, 6 months of trying to figure out what to pilot, and then you're implementing. And so next thing you know, you're addressing these problems 2 years after you've surfaced them. I feel like here I'm seeing that you're able to surface these much quicker so that you can pilot interventions much more quickly and have more impact on your existing set of students. Am I seeing that and reading that right?
Yeah, it is much quicker, because really at the end of the semester, if you want to wait till the end of the semester and all the data is collected from all, an entire goal, it's very easy to look at the end of that semester and say, okay, what happened across all the courses that are collecting, global competency data, and is there an intervention that we want to look at, and what would that look like, right? So it's not waiting, a long time. You could put that into effect the next semester, because of that quick compilation, pulling out of Canvas and into our dashboard here.
That's incredible. How have you, and I imagine faculty are really interested in seeing this data and thinking about how they can change their individual practices. How do you share this data back to faculty and to the institution more broadly?
Yeah, well, it is part of how the faculty are meeting in their goal team. So faculty are part of a goal team if that is, if you're in a global competency or critical thinking, right? Each of those have goal teams. And the goal teams are going to meet in the semester where they review the data from the past semester. They talk about, I see that Sherry Carpenter has a question here. This is a dashboard that we built actually in our own data universe. But I think that what we're showing is that the Canvas data can be extrapolated and manipulated in lots of different ways, right? So you can use that data into a pre-existing, there's plenty of companies that will show you their products, but we have a pre-existing system that we use, and so we're able to build this dashboard into that system.
That's great. That's great. And you were saying about the competency teams, the faculty competency teams. How do they work together to drive towards these outcomes?
Yeah, so they do norming. So there's a couple different things that they do. They do both norming exercises, because we want to be able to norm on our artifacts across the goals, and they do data analysis, right? So they look at the results in the dashboard, and then they norm, right, the assignments across disciplines even, right? So if it's critical and creative thinking, you might have humanities classes norming with a sociology class to talk about what does critical and creative thinking look like, right, in both of those places. So there's both actions are taking place for faculty. That's the kind of work that they're doing. And I think that's the building the outcomes in Canvas, that's one semester worth of work. You do the assessment in an ongoing way, but what we wanted to move to those meaningful actions of kind of talking about both, the work of the assignment, the norming of the assignment and the results, as opposed to just always it be data collection, right? So.
Yeah. How, and I think probably folks out there, and I imagine this relates to the question, I think it was Sherry that had, did you have a big IT team that helped you put this dashboard together? Or, access to Canvas data is fairly straightforward, and we have lots of access to that data, but it can be overwhelming for folks. How did you sort of bridge the gap of, we're doing these great things in Canvas, we've got these outcomes we need to do, and we need to figure out how to report it? How'd you put that together?
Yeah, so we don't have a big IT team. We have a very small, powerful team, is I guess the way that I would say it, very dedicated, a group of people working on this. So we do some programming of the data that comes out of quizzes, because that's how we can kind of make it align. And working very closely and very appreciative of the work to make sure that everything works as things move with the quizzes system. So we do some manipulation of the quizzes data, but the other data, because it comes out so cleanly, that comes from the rubrics, we don't have to manipulate that data. All the programming comes in on the other side, right, of just saying, okay, how do we want this data coming out of Canvas to be expressed directly into the dashboard? And so we do have a vendor that we work with that is part of the product that you see here, that we built many dashboards that are part of our SIS data that we've had before. So we work with that vendor, but no, it's not a big IT team, but it has been a lot of working with faculty, with our Learning Outcomes Assistance Office, to make sure that everyone understands what each of these mean. Right? So we have a whole methodology page. We have pages that explain what is that outcome data and what does that mean in each page.
Yeah, that's great. And that's great to hear, Sherry, that you love new analytics, and that as you dig deeper into that institutional assessment, like here, working with Canvas data and Power BI, and I think with all of us going online so deeply, and for some institutions so quickly, really digging into Canvas data will be important, and to understand how you can continue to iterate on this experience going forward, even if we go back to more traditional delivery. I believe that we're going to see a change in just how we even do traditional delivery of learning, and this data, this is a great example of how we can pivot on that in meaningful ways. So.
And I really think about, how much experience our faculty are going to have out of this. Now, that experience is really hard won, right? And I want to say that, it's not been easy, right? It's been very hard to say middle of the semester, surprise, guess what, right? You were teaching tap dancing in a classroom and now you have to go figure out how to do that online, right? But the experience, the richness of that experience that our faculty are coming away with, that is going to transform all the courses and all the teaching that is going to happen going forward, because now there's just a deeper well of tools available to all those faculty. And so, whatever the questions or the challenges or the opportunities that they see when working with their students, they're going to have so many more rich opportunities based on their experiences over the past couple months and all the training that they've had.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had to suggest, Megan, sort of how do you prioritize that? Because I think for some institutions and some teams supporting their faculty, there's going to be a, oh my gosh, there's so much we can do moment, right? Mm-hmm. And look at all this data that we're getting, and wow, I can make such an impact based on what we're seeing. But that's almost overwhelming because there is so much that can be done. So how have you all prioritized how you choose to invest your time, how you choose to invest even resources as you're looking to really continue to improve how you're delivering on student success?
Well, our outcomes project, this is our big project, which is years long, right? And so we are always going to be working on this. We took a little bit of break, in March and April, we pressed pause and we've come back to it. But this isn't something that we're going to accelerate or pause. We're just going to always be going on this outcomes project, but not any faster. I really think the things that we are trying to really push right now are helping faculty to have those tools, the pedagogical tools and the knowledge in Canvas, in order to be able to help their students succeed this semester. And also to help them succeed, because what I want to acknowledge is that many of us have our children at home. Many of us are working under really different conditions that are way more stressful. And so, knowing that, if you don't have to have that question of it's 2 a.m, I don't know how to do this. If we can prevent that stress, that anxiety for our faculty, that's like a number one priority for us. So we did, instead of a week of training, we did a month of training in August. We tried to keep our sessions really small so that we could do lots of hands-on training for people, even though it was virtual. So, for this semester right now, what we've prioritized is, how can we make sure that we can just really, lower the level of anxiety and increase the level of confidence that everyone feels in order to be successful and comfortable this semester.
That's great. And I get this sense of a calming presence that you're trying to provide to your faculty as well, in the way you've developed your PD, in the way you're using data. How do you, am I right about that? Is there this, it's all going to be okay sort of thing that you're trying to drive? Because I think that's, for a lot of people, this is an incredibly stressful time. The teams working with faculty, the teams running Canvas, the teams, the faculty themselves. How do you create a sense of calm and we're going to be great through all this?
Yeah, so it is really difficult. But I think that knowing that it's really difficult, knowing that it's really stressful, it's all the more reason that we have to try to prioritize, right? What is our big goal, right? Institutionally, what are our big goals? What do we have to do? What do we have to do today? Right. And so, for example, one thing that we stressed in our communications with faculty, our trainings with faculty, this training period was creating a communication schedule and communicating that to your students so that you don't feel like you need to be answering emails at 2 a.m, right? So, saying, what is the best way to contact me? Is it Canvas inbox the best way to contact me? Am I having a virtual office hour? Making sure that you have that communications plan down and that you're communicating it. And then when you're off, right? Take that time, make sure you're taking care of yourself, making sure you're taking care of your family, because, we can't be, I think in March, a lot of us were in that really, we're just going to push through it, right? We're all going to stay up like all night and then we're just going to push through it. But we're not going to be able to do that for like an indefinite amount of time, right? We're not going to be as successful. So we do have to really prioritize, our students and our core mission, but we need to do that in a way that is sustainable.
Yeah. Then LJ, thank you for sharing that. And I can see this in Megan too, this sense of calm, which is pretty incredible. And I think a lot of us are facing that. And you just gave incredible advice, Megan. I even am giving that advice to my team as we're trying to help institutions to work through this pretty profound change in how we deliver education. And it really is, it's about understanding what are the expectations, setting those up front, creating boundaries that are healthy, because the more healthy we are, right, the more healthy the experiences that we can deliver to students are. And a lot of times it just really is about making sure those expectations are communicated and folks are aware of those. Such incredible advice. And this lowering anxiety and faculty confidence. And, if there are things like, I can tell you, Megan, if there are anything we can be doing to help with that, that's really become a really important focus for us and how we develop and how we deliver materials. And I'll say that to everybody listening too. We're always very inviting of feedback, because I think creating this sense of it's all going to be okay is going to be really important, or else it'll just will derail from the learning experience, and it'll just be, it won't have the impact that we want to on our students. Hey, Mark, I've been dominating this conversation. Are there questions out there? I feel bad. I'm asking all the questions.
Don't feel bad at all. I have little ones who are just getting home, so I decided it was probably safer for me to not be on video for part of it. But I think you guys are answering all of it. Great comment here from Christy. Christy's one of our friends out in Hawaii. Loving that term, outcome projects that are chosen from data you've collected. People are just loving, Megan, this idea of what you're doing with outcomes. And we knew that going into this conversation. I would love to just dig in a little bit more. Megan, so often, as you can imagine, there are people who get a little bit scared, get a little bit nervous about use of data. Mm-hmm. And I love how your team has focused so heavily on, no, we're not doing anything or using any data that is scary. What we're doing is using data that helps our students to be more successful. Talk about that a little bit for me, if you would.
Yeah, so I think that maybe the thing that we started with at the very beginning, every single meeting, is like, this data is not used in a way that's connected with, a particular teacher's evaluation or a particular course evaluation or anything like that. This is big data, right? I mean, we're trying to connect data at a much higher level. So what we want to see is data patterns, right? We want to be able to understand our courses that meet in the evenings performing in a certain way, our courses that are meeting online performing in a certain way, our students who took particular sequence of courses struggling. And so maybe they should get assigned mentors or tutors at this particular point in their coursework. So what we're looking is at institutional, patterns and institutional solutions. And I think that really, cools everybody down, right? Because the automatic assumption, I think, for some people is like, is this going to be used as an evaluative tool for me? And that is not at all how we're thinking about this. This is an evaluative tool for us as an institution. And I think in the past, a lot of the data that we got back, it was so broad that the only kind of things that we could look at were, okay, can we change all the assignments that have to do with X, right? But we couldn't make those much more granular or much more specific patterns to kind of look at what's happening. And so what makes me excited about this project, and I see other people at our institution getting excited about it, is that we're able to really find, what's happening across many different courses over time because of this systemic data collection. And then faculty understand it's not about my course, but if my course was online and that core, had in common with, many other courses, and those students were struggling in this way, yeah, maybe we want to support them with a particular online orientation that would help those students be more successful, right? And that is something that we had planned for 6 months from now, but we expedited that over the summer, right? And we got that launched because we knew it would help our students this fall. So that, there are things like that we are, trying to do because of COVID right now. But this data process is about helping us look at all of that over time, but not about evaluating any particular person or course. And I think that really helps people understand about, what the goals are.
That's great.
Love it. One more question, Melissa, from me, and then I'll stop. So we talked before, Megan, about Canvas being that one-stop shop for you and for your teachers and for your faculty. Any feedback that you've received thus far from teachers or students specifically about, having just the simplicity and the consistency of what we're getting in Canvas is helping to be a better learner or a better educator?
Yeah, so when I was listening to the head of our student body give a reflection about what really helped him during last semester, the thing that he said was Canvas, because that's where everything was, that's where his faculty were, and his faculty were so good at communicating with him through Canvas, through announcements, through the inbox, and that just made me smile, right? Because it just rang true that was the student experience. That he was just reflecting what was happening you know, around the college, that faculty really were in their campus sites, right? Being there for their students, making sure to communicate so regularly. And that as we as a college would, you know, say, okay, how are we going to do something? And there were so many examples of this. How are we going to do, you know, some orientation? How are we going to do, you know, XYZ that we used to do on campus? And now we have to find a way to do it. So many times the answer was Canvas, because everyone was already comfortable with it. The students were comfortable with it. The faculty were comfortable with it. And so it just made sense for Canvas to be that one-stop shop for us. And so for you know, hearing our students and to hear the president of our student body say that, you know, it made complete sense to hear that from him.
And I can imagine.
Well, we're pretty excited to hear that ourselves.
Oh, yeah. And I was going to say, I can imagine that that also helps faculty feel more comfortable with the initiatives that you're doing, because at the end of the day, and I know this from my own teaching, we all just want to create the best experience possible for students. And if we stay focused on that, it helps make the uncomfortable moments when you realize, oh, I could probably do that differently or better, a lot easier to accept, because we're all in it together for the same outcome at the end of the day. And I think that's awesome that you've used that as a voice and a driver in this, and to really help rally the institution behind your students. So cool, so cool. Mark, those are all the questions that I have. I feel like I've picked Megan's brain pretty extensively in the last 45 minutes. Is there anything else for you?
I think it was a fantastic conversation, Megan. You have officially set yourself up as needing to come back on here many more times in the future. And just to be very clear, because I'm sure we'll get calls from the president of Howard, Megan she's not available to go anywhere else. She's in Howard. We love her at Howard. Any job offers that come must go through me first. Megan's fantastic. The entire Howard team is doing awesome stuff. So thank you, Megan. Thank you, Howard. Keep it up. Good luck with this semester. Everyone in the U.S., it is Labor Day on Monday, so we're not going to be here, but we will be back on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good to talk to you, and thanks again, Megan.
Thanks for having me.